Hey folks, Gary here. Happy Sunday to you. Hey, have you ever been through a really hard situation and yet you found joy in it? You're still happy, you still had a great countenance about you? People can think you're weird when that takes place. I remember when we had the forest fires here 5 years ago. Forest fires came through this area and it was hard. We were all evacuated to Kamloops and it wasn't really pleasant. And yet, when you saw people you knew and you were in that, where we would gather together, there was great joy to be found in those places. And that seems like an odd combination. But Jesus talks about that. In John 15, verse 11, now we've been looking through John 15, and Jesus is talking about how he is the vine and we are the branch. We remain in him. We will be fruitful. Our lives will be fruitful. There'll be great things that take place in our lives for God, for sure. And that we would know his love like we never have before when we abide in him and he abides in us. Well, in verse 11, he says this, talking about joy. He says, I have told you this to make you as completely happy as I am. No, that's the CEV version. Other versions say this, I have told you this, that you would have my joy, that your joy would be complete. Now, what is Jesus talking about? Well, he's talking about when we abide in Christ and Christ abides in us, there's a joy inside of us that the world can't really define or understand. When Jesus says this, remember, we're in John 15. Not too far after this, Jesus is on the cross. Jesus knows what's coming up. He knows what he's facing, and yet he's saying that his joy is complete. How can you have joy facing the cross? And we know that Jesus anguished about it. We know from the time in the garden that he actually sweat blood over this. So it wasn't a happy, clappy time by any means. But what Jesus is telling us in this is that our joy is not based on circumstances at all. It's not based on what's taking place at the moment. Our joy is based on who God is and the fact he dwells inside of us. That's where we find our joy. Do we face hard things? Yes. And do they suck? Absolutely. Here's the thing. We got to be realist about things. There are hard things that take place in our life, really hard things, real hard things that cause a lot of suffering. And we know that and we feel that for sure. But we also understand that the things we face, the things we walk into are only temporary. They're not eternal. The joy we have in Christ, the fact we dwell with him, that's eternity. And so we know that there's a bright future ahead. We know there's eternity with God. And so present day things, they might really bite, but we know they're only temporal. God is eternal.